Everybody. Thanks for coming over to this Doctor of FinTech information session and sample lectures. And unlike the normal lecturing, I cannot move around because I have some online registration too. So I was told that I have to stand still here and to face the camera. Cannot move around. So hopefully it's not that boring. So let's start right away, and then some people will come later. So today's program, I'm Wilson Tong, the director of the DFinTech program. We call it DFinTech. And with us is Dr. Stephen Wei, who's the deputy program director, and he will also do a sample lecture on FinTech. And then we have Dr. Xavier sitting over there, coming from our Department of Computing to help the sample lecture on blockchain. And then we will have Professor Shi, he's coming to have a sample lecture on smart city and urban informatics. So that would be the rundown. And I start with 15 minutes to introduce our program. And then later on, the sample lecture will start right away, starting with FinTech and then blockchain and then smart city. And then we will have two of our existing students do the sharing and share their experience about joining the program. And also, I guess you may concern about after the program, you have to write a thesis, how to come up with your thesis topic, how to pursue on this. So our two existing students would share experience as well, and then end with the Q&A session and networking. Right? So that would be the rundown of this afternoon's session. Okay, so let me start right away. Talk about our FinTech program. Now, the objective of PolyU's FinTech program have three levels, I would say. One is a general level, so broadening, updating, and deepening understanding, appreciation of importance of the impacts of digital transformation and tech innovation on the business world. Right, so it's a very general, but it's very important to have people appreciate the importance and impact of the current era of digital transformation. And then the second level of our program objective to have a more in-depth knowledge on the digital technology with a focus on financial industry, but I don't want to emphasize too much on this because some may apply the digital technology in other areas that we also appreciate. But as a matter of fact, I believe one of our students was talking about tokenization of property development. So it's not exactly the FinTech, but essentially the in-depth knowledge on digital technology applied in respective areas. And the last one, of course, is to learn the way to do original research, leading to your thesis. So the one thing, presumably the extractive is you will earn a doctorate degree while still pursuing your career, right? So so why you want to, or what should be the reasons that our PolyU DFinTech program to be attractive? For the first important reason is we are kind of a market leader. I believe we are the first one, almost in this world, that we have a FinTech doctoral program. And another thing particular to this program is that you, when joining the program, will benefit from full resources of different faculties. So that's why today's sample lecture, actually, so we have three lectures coming from professors and different faculties of PolyU. So it's not just faculty of business, even though this program is housed in faculty of business. And then the third one is to integrate academic study, applied research with management practice. So that is our slogan of aiming to train scholar leaders, right? So you are kind of leaders in your respective industry areas, but through this program, we hope to transform you into a scholar leaders. And how to do this scholar leaders, right? In what way? So the sample lecture probably will give you some idea that typically you will go through some cutting edge frontier academic research in the area so that you can understand the relevance of academic research in practice, right? And then the other way is through this program, you train in a scholastic way of dealing with issues, problems through reading those academic papers that you begin to appreciate the logic, the support of all the arguments that you try to form. So it's very different from writing newspaper articles or just like EMBA type of approach. You will appreciate that the approach is very different. And then the fourth one is to embrace digital transformation and tech innovation, right? So that is, of course, that's the key part, the core part of this. And explore the potential of digital economics and digital finance. Okay, I'm sorry that I'm kind of lazy to copy. I just want to echo that when you join the program, you benefit from pool of resources of different faculties. And we try to show you a very recent ranking on specific areas, right? So here is from Times Higher Education World University Ranking 2021. And this is Chinese because it's from our PolyU admin division sent to us. That a specific area is reading that in PolyU's business and economic area. So this area ranked all over the world number 25. In Hong Kong, we are number 1. So in Chinese, that is us, Hong Kong Polytechnic University in business economics area, ranked number 25. So that is one part. The other part is from US News, very recent ranking, and in different areas. In this case, they rank on of computer science. Again, for the whole world, PolyU ranked number 26 in Fast University of Computer Science. Guess what's the number 1 all over the world, according to US News? Any wild guess? Surprisingly, it's not MIT. MIT seems to be number 3. The third. Number 1 is Tsinghua. Number 2 is Stanford. Number 3 is MIT. So we are not bad. we are 26. I believe Chinese still is 11. China. Right. So we are the second in this part of the world. And then for the engineering, it's the UN News. So we are really at top. PolyU ranked number 11. That is really number 1 in this part of the world. Again, number 1 is Tsinghua. Number 2 is to be NTU. National, no, is it? No, it's Singapore. Oh, Nanyang Technological University, right? That is number 2. Number 3 again is MIT. So indeed, I want to say that we are doing very well in different areas, and our DFinTech program is exactly contributed by this faculty, right? So we want to provide the best resources, including our faculty members, this program, and to aim to make some contribution in terms of cultivating FinTech, digital tech talent in Hong Kong. So you join the program learning in a supportive environment. So well, as I said, DFinTech program is housed in the Faculty of Business, And we have a core value, so to speak, called ideas. Ideas stand for innovation-driven education and scholarship. And with a 3D focus, 3D stands for discovery, design, and delivery. So that is our faculty business slogan. So let you know a little bit about the faculty business. Is a comprehensive business school, one of the biggest business schools in Asia, with 4,700 students and 52,000 alumni, over 170 world-class scholars all over the world. And so, what does a diversified world-class group of professors bring to you? So, what do you expect to get out of the program? Is, as I said, why we have this high rank in different areas. One major part is typically publication research, doing very well. So our professors will give you the state-of-the-art research and cutting-edge interdisciplinary research. Nowadays, actually, we emphasized this quite some years ago, interdisciplinary type of research. Nowadays, in the digital technology area, so it's well known that by nature it is cross-disciplinary. So that's why our DFinTech program is cross-faculty type of program. And then, as I said, at the end of the day, you need to do the thesis. So when you join the program, eventually you will have available list of qualified supervisors. And typically, later I'll talk about, after 1 year, we'll give you a list of potential supervisors that you can approach to talk about your interests, your areas, and try to find a mutual match. Then you find a supervisor for your thesis. And eventually, we encourage the publication top-tier journals. So why I think it's important and attractive because you are the leaders in the business area. But once you get retired, you move, and then you're no longer with the company, right? Even in business. But if you get published in international journals, your name will be there forever and ever, and you will be proud of your wife, your husband, your kids, the grandparents, hey, that's your grandfather. There, right? So that is really something that I think is worthwhile for you to consider. Okay, so now I put the focus on the program structure of our digital program. This program actually is new, of course, but we mimic our another program for DB program. DB program only is the first one in town. This is our 25th year of DB program. So we mimic that. The structure is essentially the same. Essentially, our program is credit bearing, total 51 credits. Roughly, this 51 credits has three components. One is teach the top subjects, right? And then the other is the thesis. The third one is full residential workshop. I will explain more later. And essentially, we do it in a weekend mode. So essentially Saturday and Sunday, and the whole day, right? So essentially, one subject bears 3 credits with 30 contact hours. That means really 30 hours. So it involves usually either 5 Saturdays or Saturday, Sunday, 2 weekend and 1 Saturday, like this. Right? And if you follow our path, and you will be able to finish in 3 years, even though you have the flexibility. If you are busy or you move around, then you can extend. Right, like this. And the last bullet point I don't want to emphasize because if you finish all the subjects and for whatever reason you are not to pursue your thesis or whatever, then we have an exit award in after that. That's what I don't want to emphasize. Right? So now, the 51 credits here clearly state that the 3 components. One is 8 top subjects. I'll explain more in details later. So each subject, there are 3 credits. So 8 subjects is 24 credits. The last bullet point is the thesis is also 24 credits, right? Now, these 24 credits, the thesis is 1.5 years, right? So it's a very serious business whether you can finish the program, right? So because of this thesis is a full subject on thesis 2. Thesis 1 is the one for you to develop your idea proposal. And this bears 8 credits, right? And then the other one is thesis 2. That is double. That is 16 credits. So why is that? That relates to the third component, that is second last point. We have 2 residential workshops. There are 3 credits. The first one is the orientation one credit. That is to join the program in January at the then we have an orientation one. So that you mingle with your fellow classmates with faculty. 1 credit. So it's compulsory, right? Okay, then you start taking that. And then after 1.5 years, then you're supposed to finish your program with 1 thing. Each of you will present your proposal. And then you pass that assessment, and you start to finish the then you are allowed to look for thesis 2. That is the final stage of your program, right? And this proposal has 2 subjects. So again, it is compulsory. So that is the whole structure. Okay, talking about the 8 top subjects that you have to take. Okay. One is the compulsory subject. And interestingly, this compulsory subject actually is the last one you take. That is the subject compulsory in the sense that all of you are protected. It's called research design for teachers. That's the next step. You're very good in your own business. This course really help you to have doctoral level type of thesis, right? So that's why that's the idea. All right, and then you have to take 1 core subject. Core subject is a technical subject in terms of research. So when you do the thesis research, you need some methodology, technique, right? Now, and it depends on that you learn all from DBA program. In the area is all related to some focus on digital areas. So that type of area, and then you probably here, that will be taught in quantitative research. But if your focus is really on economic, accounting, data analytics, that sort of stuff, then you want to do quantitative research. So that's why it's all in the sense that you have to take one out of these 2. The difference between core and compulsory. And then the next one would be okay. So you have 1 compulsory and 1 core, and then you have 6 subjects, right? You need to take. So we don't have that many electives. Why? Because we want to oversee and to go through all this. Right? So these are the subjects you can choose. But of course, I encourage you to take two subjects. So the first two taught by our computing department's professors. So the first one is big data analytics and AI. The second one is cryptography and blockchain. And I shade it yellow because professors from computing department do blockchain. And then we have digital supply chain management, economics of FinTech, and that's another separate lecture. Let's skip the independent study first. For the time being, talk about benchmarking fits the work. So here you have so you have marketing, you have management, you have marketing, and then you have facility and urban informatics and professors in LSDI, land survey, and Geo-Informatics. That will be another sample lecture. So I want to show you the three electives that you find that basically you want to take all of them. Now, let me talk specifically on two electives. One is the independent study in FinTech. And that is, again, this limit of our DBA program. We want to do international collaboration. Right? And our DBA is a collaboration with the third famous Swiss school, IMD. I think IMD housed in a very nice city called Lausanne in Switzerland. Is next to the French border. Very nice campus, very famous 5-day technical program. And every year they attract 300 or even over 400. NGO and then that's the time you want to mingle with national executive, right? And then IMD we update the program. They launched a new 5-day executive program of FinTech. So of course, so if you join a program, you can also go to IMD next year. No more COVID-19 appraisal. 5 days. But that is overseas. I'm sorry. So I'm talking about this. Independent study is simply individual subject. I'll give you an example. We have a student doing FinTech, but he has no experience in financial engineering. You need to learn something like this. Of course, we do have such a course. Then we decide to do this independent study under supervision. Independent study. The independent study is if you find something you really want to understand but not this level study, then you want to do this with the guidance of the supervisor in your institution. To go through one semester, you can build a guided study, kind of like this, right? So that is how we structure this. I thought already. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, now let's repeat, right? This is the overseas executive program. So again, it's credit bearing, 3 credits. So that is IMD stand for all. International Institute for Management Development. It's in Switzerland. Right. don't know why I just get stuck up here. Can anybody help me? Okay, thank you. Okay, so that's the basic program structure, all right? Should I ask you if you have other questions, or we can hold it to the end, right? So the basically program structure, and I give you some idea, right? You're curious what kind of a fellow class space you come into, right? So that's based on that's the third year intake. We started this 2 years ago, so we have 2 years FinTech, and basically average working experience 14.5 years, average is 40. Most of students working in senior management level, so the CEO, MD, manager, lawyer, we have lawyer. From companies like KPMG, HSBC, Goldman Sachs, NBank, Henderson Land. So interesting areas, but essentially I would say that you typically have some startups and you have some traditional finance people in the bank. They really want to know this kind of fintech disruption thing, right? And then we have people surprisingly not this area, but they find it kind of in the area. But our feeling is indeed we are getting more and more people really in the fintech area. Right. So this is the residential one. So we have at that time we still don't have the quarantine, and then so we have a happy gathering orientation. We'll have dinner together. And then I mentioned about we have the residential tool that is for the research workshop or thesis proposal presentation. And that is the one I think. Right. So the thesis, as I said, run for 1.5 years in general. We have two parts for thesis one and thesis two. Right? The entrance requirement typically you have a master's degree and at least 5 years work experience. A little bit relaxed in DBA, we need 8 years. The reason is the fintech area is new. We are very competent, prominent young people in the field. So we don't want to use those. Right? So entrance requirements, so right. So that's I mentioned. Fill the application with some ideas, proposal, employment, academic qualification, and the program fee around 800,000. We pay in credit basis. So let's say you join, you pay the first semester subject, right? Orientation with 2 subjects, and then right. So, by the way, even though I don't encourage, if you're really too busy, you can apply so-called zero subject registration. That you say, hey, the next semester I know that I'm very busy, I couldn't take any course, then you can apply for that. If that's the case, you don't need to pay $2,000 something to the whole year. Right? So it's very flexible in terms of the fee. Depends on how many subjects you plan to take, right? And another thing is the scholarship is available. I don't know whether I need to say this because the whole program actually is filled up by our PolyU FinTech Center. It is the baby. Tech Center get donation from industry and company, a company called AMTD. But then we sign agreement, and then they agree to set up one scholarship for us, but have to pay their name. It can be this scholarship, right? So that's it. So right, that is the amount that you have, and then you need to apply, of course, and this of course. So I will have a committee to decide how much. So you can imagine that if you're very good, you can probably get a scholarship 50% or 60%. And if you're not that good, then 20%, 30%. If you're no good, then you cannot scholarship. So it depends on the committee to decide, right? So the bottom line is there. And also, it's not just one person. You can have 3 or 4. Okay, right? What else, right? Okay, so I finished my part. I probably run over time. But that is mistake is at the end of November. After that, so you go to this website, right? And then we have admin people that can address all the logistic type of issues, questions you may have. Okay, so thank you. And let me hold those questions to the end. And then let's start the sample lecture right away. Okay? So the way start lecture. Oh, okay. We are talking about FinTech. Right? Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. Professor Tong just gave you a very exciting introduction about the program and the program structure. And next, we will have two professors who will give an introduction about their sample lecture. And I am in the middle, so I'm trying to give you some background or introduction before you can understand their lectures. So this is just like a bridge. So I'm trying to give you an introduction about FinTech. It is, I forgot to talk about myself, right? I'm Stephen Wei. I'm the deputy director of the program, and the Professor Tong is the director of the program. This is my talk, and I will give you a brief introduction about FinTech, and then give you some examples and ideas. We talk about several examples, and then I give you some idea about digital transformation. And also, if I have time, I will talk a bit on FinTech development. So now everyone can see we are riding in the digital age, and the whole world is becoming more and more digitalized, and the COVID-19 speed this process up. Because of the social distance, and now the people are getting connected by digital instruments like computers and iPhones, etc. So this is also why we introduced this program. It's called Doctor of FinTech program. So what is FinTech? So I'm going to give you a very brief introduction. Then I will talk about we call beyond. Our slogan is FinTech and beyond. Then I will talk about what is beyond. Means we talk about the digital transformation and digital enabling for various kinds of business and organizations. I also will give you 2 cases or 3 cases about this. And then Professor Shi will talk about smart city. So that one I will leave to Professor Shi's talk. So what is a FinTech? So in a narrow definition, the FinTech is regarding applying digital technology
to the designs of the financial products and the services, and also to the solutions to the financial problems. That's the immediate understanding about the FinTech. Then we talk about to apply digital technology to operations, risk management, compliance, and then we talk about the new business models. We talk about new regulations, new monitoring systems. That's something regarding regulations and supervisions. Well, I guess this side I don't need to talk about more, right? So the on the left-hand side, we are talking about what are the financial paths we are trying to apply the digital FinTech. So these are a few major applications or functions in our finance. So we are talking about payments, investment, advisory, insurance, regulations, etc. So what are the key digital technology we talk about? Now, actually, different people can give many different definitions. Here, I try to give you a few very important and fundamental technologies we are using for this program. So we call A, B, C, D. A is AI, B is blockchain. I think you will hear about the blockchain sample lecture today. And then cloud computing, C is a cloud computing, D is a big data. And all this will be powered by 5G and also Internet things, right? So these are becoming so important in today's digital technology. So let me give you some examples to show you what the FinTech are doing in finance. And the first one, well, we are quite familiar with, so that's why I just mentioned it. It's a digital payments. So we are using digital payments everywhere, every day. The common ones are mobile payments. We are using more or less like every day. And now also in some places, the people are trying to using more advanced, we call facial recognition payments, right? You just smile to the camera, then you pay. And in some special places, people can use digital currencies to pay. Right now, CBDC in mainland China just a study. They try to use this in a few cities and few regions. And also, some places are using cryptocurrencies. Right? So you can use the Bitcoin and some other cryptocurrencies to pay. Yesterday night, I just received email from a student of mine. He said that the Wharton School now allow the student to pay their tuition fee for one course by using cryptocurrencies. And you can either using Bitcoin, Ethereum, and maybe some other currencies. And I think that's a very exciting starting point. I should talk to Professor Tang to initiate our cryptocurrency payment for at least one course, right, in the short future. They can do this as an exercise. And then the digital lending, well, this is a very common today. But quite a few years ago, people know that in mainland China, we have a lot of P2P. And eventually, I think that because of the regulation issue, they closed down. And however, and this is quite popular in overseas, like in US, and we have a lending club. In Hong Kong, we have a VLab, and VLab is also working in some other places, like in mainland China, in Southeast Asia. And now, I think a lot of the virtual banks or new type of banks are using this technology from P2P to do this credit rating and to do this risk management. I think the technology is very similar, the same. Though the business model probably is different. And then we talk about digital currencies. I think a lot of people heard about CBDC in mainland China. So they started in 2014, and then studied to initiate, I think, 1 year ago. So the cryptocurrencies now people understand is much better than many years ago. The coin is rising in a very high price now, and the Ethereum, I think, the price is rising quickly too. So whether this is the trend in the future or not, we are not sure, right? So whether the cryptocurrencies will be the trend or not, we are not quite sure. I think that CBDC should be a very good trend, not only in mainland China, we are using this digital currency, and in some other countries, they are trying to introduce a digital currency as well. I think Hong Kong is considering, right? Hong Kong may introduce the digital currency very soon. But my understanding is that the digital currency introduced by central bank is substantially different from the digital the cryptocurrencies we are talking about, the Bitcoin, the Ethereum, repos. So they are two different types of the digital currencies. So some other advanced examples, I think that some people heard, some people probably are not familiar with. Let me use a few examples to demonstrate. So the first example, I think, is a very sexy example now in Hong Kong, is the virtual bank. Right? In 2019, Hong Kong MA issued the virtual bank license. I think today we also invited one of our first cohort students, the Melissa. She is coming from a virtual bank, Vivi Bank. Right? So probably she will share some more experience about the virtual bank with us. So basically, the virtual bank is substantially different from the traditional bank in the sense that there's no physical branches. Right? We don't need the physical branches, and that's also one way to reduce the cost. And of course, without the physical branches, then you will fully rely on the digital technology. So far, I think it is just a beginning, because all the 8 virtual banks started to operate in 2020. They are now about 1 year old, or a little bit more than 1 year old. So they haven't done much. I guess that it's very hard for them to make a profit in the very short period. However, I think that they have a long run potential. So far, they basically provide the traditional services, and also they provide the ways to make a deposit through the internet. But normally the service charge is relatively low, or sometimes it's even free. And of course, we expect there will be some potential in the future. I guess some potentials are something like a more innovative digital services, right? So they will make the service more user friendly and more user friendly, and also give you a better experience by using this digital technology. And they may also produce or generate some new financial products. And sometimes I call quasi products, right? So they are not like the product that they are using today. They can create something new. And another important thing, I guess, is that the virtual bank can expand in a much larger scale than the traditional banks that we have today, because you are fully rely on the internet or rely on digital technology. Like the virtual banks in Hong Kong, they will extend to the Great Bay Area very soon, I guess. That should be the first step. And the second step, you can think about the whole mainland China, and then the Southeast Asia and India market. This is a very large three big markets. I think this is the potential for virtual banks in the future. And another direction for the virtual banks the development is they will be integrated into our daily life. Right? So in the future, when you're doing banking, you do not need to go to the branches, and when you do your payment, and then you can pay in a very easy and much convenient way in the short future. And I think that this will be the right direction for virtual banks to develop in the future. And of course, the compliance and regulations will be also the good directions for them to follow through the digital technology. So they will make the compliance regulations much easier than before. So that's something we call the red tag, we call the super tag. And I just put one more page to give you some directions, and you can see that you can use AI and machine learning to work on the lending, to look at how to do the credit valuation or assessment, and they can also use the AI to do the investment, and we also emphasize on green finance. So this will help us on green finance as well. And shopping, well, in Hong Kong, shopping is a very important part of our life. I think the virtual bank will put a lot of resources along this direction as well. Make your life or your shopping much easier than before, and you will feel that it is a part of your life with the FinTech. So user experience, so the FinTech can help you to predict what you need, and so they can give you some advices, give you a better experience for your shopping, for your life, and for many other things. The second example, because of the time, I just mentioned briefly. I found that this is a brokerage firm really rely on the leading technology in digital technology. It's called Fuchu, right? That's a brokerage firm. So the guy who founded this firm is the guy from Tencent. If I remember his name, his English name is Leaf, right? Leaf, yes. And the Chinese name is Li Hua. And he actually found that in Hong Kong, the trading financial securities are not that friendly. And then he tried to use financial technology because they came from Tencent. And he tried to use the technology he learned or he used in Tencent and to facilitate the trading in Hong Kong. And I think that in the beginning, the Tencent was not interested in this project. Later on, Tencent became one of the major investors for this company or for this project. Fuchu listed in NASDAQ, I think two years ago. Yeah, it's a very successful digital brokerage firm. Why I'm using this is because my kids are using this firm too, and they mentioned to me saying that this is a very good digital technology firm to trade stocks. And now there are quite a number of insurance companies by using digital technology. I choose one of them. This one is in Hong Kong. In 2019, it is number 70th in the world for the FinTech startup. So this is called Bowtie Life Insurance. So everything they do is online. So you can buy the insurance online. Very easy. It only take you about a few minutes. Probably on average it's about 10 minutes. Now it's getting shorter and shorter, right? So you do not need to go through the fancy process to do a lot of like a DD kind of things. And now there are quite a number of this small fintech companies to do this insurance technology. They're trying to help the big insurance companies. Well, some of our students are doing this. So because of the time, I'm not going to give you more details. And this example 4 is it's a very interesting example for me. I think probably many people didn't realize this is a fintech design. It's called Nets Uni. And people probably know that in the past we have this third-party payment like Zhifubao, like WeChat payment, right? Alipay, WeChat Pay, and many this third-party payment system. And because they are trying to avoid the monitoring of the central banks. So the central bank has a problem with the monetary policy because of this problem, right? So they do not know how the money flows. And I think that this system is exactly trying to solve this problem. So they put something in the middle, and all the transactions will be monitored or will go through this net, and then they can control or they can monitor how the money flow among different banks, different customers. I feel that this is a very smart design. It is one smart way to innovate in fintech in the red cap. So I'm thinking whether we can apply this idea to something like a cross-border finance flows. I'm trying to give some suggestions whether we can apply the similar idea to do this. We are doing a red cap now. So the more advanced example is the stock connect schemes. I think some people are trading the mainland stocks through the stock connect, the stock connect schemes in Hong Kong, right? So you can trade a lot of stocks in mainland, and you just stay in Hong Kong, and you can use the broker firms in Hong Kong, and more or less like you trade the stocks in Hong Kong Stock Exchange. If you understand in I think 2014, we have the Hong Kong and Shanghai Stock Connect. And in 2016, we have the Shenzhen and the Hong Kong Stock Connect. Basically, they can trade, I think, the majority of the stocks in the mainland. And also the people in mainland can trade stocks in Hong Kong. It's not for all stocks, but for most of the stocks. And now this idea is extending to some other market like Shanghai and London. So we have this called Shanghai-London Connect. I think this is a marvelous design for stock connect. And beside this, direct applications in finance, and actually the digital transformation can be done in many different businesses, not only in finance, and it can be done in some other business. Let's start with the banking industry first. So you can do the digital transformation with banks. One of our DBA students is working in IBM, and this example is the one she just gave to me. They are doing the digital transformation for the major banks in mainland China. The project is quite large. Usually one project is about, I think it's about 10 million to 20 million RMB. It's relatively large, right? This is not a very small one. So they are trying to do the corporate banking first, and then they are trying to transform in other parts of the banking service as well. And the main idea, because of the time, I'm not going to give you all the details, but the main idea is that previously we use the experience driven analysis or decisions now, they move to the called data driven, right? So they can collect all this data and then they use the data to make they think better decisions. That's one of the major advantages by using FinTech or digital technology. And then they can see very timely all the flows about the cash and money across the banks. So the second case is the case I just learned about because when I sat with our first cohort students in the class of the IMD. I just sat in and tried to understand what they are trying to teach, right? So I found that they use a lot of examples, and this is one example I feel is good because it's not exactly financial firm. Nike, everyone knew this firm, right? So Nike is a shoe company. And you can never think that this kind of company can do digital transformation. Actually, I think this company is very successful. So they did the digital transformation starting from a relatively early time. In 2006, the Nike announced a partnership with Apple. They tried to create this called Nike Plus. And so they try to synchronize the iPod with the users' running data. So today you feel that it's quite common, right? But think about 5 or 6 years, even more than 10 years ago. And if you think about at that time, this is really new, right? So they started quite early, very smart move. Then they try to use this to set up a platform. I think the key is that they start from a shoes company and then change it to a platform. Change it to a platform business. So they try to create an ecosystem, right? This is not only about the shoes. So it's more or less like they integrate the shoes to your daily life, right? So everything can be linked. Right? So they use the we call the IoT stuff. So they use the sensors to link these things to many other things we want to know, or to our knowledge, or to what we want to know, right? So they try to link everything together. I think the key here is we call the connection, right? So this brilliant idea is to connect the people with people, and also they connect the things to people, connect things to things, things to people, and people to people, right? So they link the internet, we call the industry internet, right, together, and in the very early stage. So that's why it is a very smart idea. And another case, I guess I'm not going to talk about more. It's one very exciting case. Is called dating market in mainland China. So in this market, they are in early time there are 3 big companies. One is called Baihe, one is called Century, and the other one is called Zhenai. And these 3 companies are more or less like taking the same market share, I think, in 2010. And in 2010, there's a sudden change about the people's views on getting married or about the marriage. And then this type of companies are increasing substantially. At this time, because their business strategies are quite different. I think for Baihe and Zhenai, so they are trying to use the people to connect the people, right? So they try to link to the central CCTV, and or they try to link to the this is called Chinese Women's Federation. So some people there help them to do this, right? This is because this is a government policy, so they are trying to do. And Century is a company mainly using digital technology, right? So they use the AI to match. And when the market share is, I think if you are using hands, you're using people to connect, then the speed of your increasing will be relatively slow, right? So I think in 2010, the Century, because of using the digital technology, suddenly increased much higher than the other two. So that's another way of thinking about when your firm trying to transform from one type of a business to another, and how can do it faster. I think digital technology, if you can apply, will be a very powerful tool. Right? This will give you a very great example and to see. So that's the main idea about this case. And let me briefly mention about the FinTech development. I think over the past few years, the investment in FinTech are increasing very quickly. If you look at this diagram, that's just updated. I think we started from 2018 until now. And while you can see a very high spike in 2019, that spike is generated by one big deal. I'm not quite sure whether you guys can recognize this. If you are in this industry, then you probably know that. This is a big deal in 2019. Any idea? What is that deal? Actually, it's for Ant Financial. So they have an international financing, and they raised a very big amount of the money in 2019. That's why you saw a big spike there. And if you look at the other quarters, right? So in 2021, that means this year is getting, on average, is getting higher. It's probably because even you look at 2020, right? In the second half of 2020, it's getting higher too. And the reason is because on the one hand, it's because pandemic, right? And on the other hand, is that because we are trying to riding on the FinTech trend, and the FinTech is developing very fast, and the investment is getting higher and higher. And here are two diagrams. One is for blockchain and cryptocurrency investment activities in the whole world. And the other diagram is about cybersecurity. So you can see that we also will talk about cybersecurity in this program. And the cybersecurity more or less like it becomes a top priority for this FinTech development for FinTech firms, because this is a major threat to some big companies. So this is a copy about 2021 FinTech development top 10 global FinTech deals. I guess many of you didn't follow this trend. If you look at the top 10 in 2019, right? So you can see that many firms, 3 firms are from mainland China, and some firms are from Southeast Asia, like one is from Indonesia, one is from Singapore, and also the pay time is from in India. And this firm now is going to IPO very soon. I think Alibaba and Ant Financial make a very large amount of investment in this firm. So I'm thinking whether we should buy Alibaba at this time. It's just a joke. And what we can see is that There's a big shift or reshuffle. And if you look at these two, right, they are quite different. So only 2 years. So there's a big change for the top 10 global fintech deals. So in some sense, in this field, it's very competitive. This is not easy to be always in the lead. So at the end, I would like to say, by citing Charles Darwin's words, because he is the guy who talked about the evolution, right? So he said that it's not the strongest of the species that survive, not the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. That means you have to adapt to the change. If you can adapt to the change, you will be the best survivor. So I think the DFinTech is your best choice when you face the change now, face the digital technology, face the pandemic. So that's my conclusion. And the last one I want to just let you guys know, Hong Kong FinTech Week 2021 will be held in November 1st to 5th. If you are interested, I think it's still the time and you can buy the ticket and you can join. That's all. Thank you very much. I think next we have a sample lecture. Who will be the first? Can I allow you to introduce yourself? I'll do that.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm very glad to be here to talk to you a little bit about blockchain. Or there's only so much that I can talk about blockchain in just a 20-minute sample lecture, of course. So I'll try to go over some important aspects that I think are worth mentioning in an overview presentation. And some of you might be already familiar with some of the things that we'll talk about. Maybe not everything. Hopefully you will still learn something at the end of this presentation. So before we delve into the topic, let me just briefly introduce myself. So as you can read here, I have a pretty complicated French name. So I am Xavier de CARNAVALET. You can just simply call me Xavier. I am a research assistant professor in the Department of Computing here at PolyU. And I've been trained as a French engineer, and I did my PhD at Concordia University in Canada. I am still teaching the master's course on distributed ledger technology, cryptocurrency, and e-payment. And I'll be in charge of the PhD course on cryptography and blockchain, which is an elective course in the Doctor of FinTech program. Now, I'm kind of the tech guy, right? I look at the technology, and my research interests lie in privacy and security. I look at internet security, web security, software security. Basically, I look at how things can go wrong, how can they be attacked, and how can we fix them. And if you apply this mentality to things related to blockchain and cryptocurrencies, it starts to become interesting because a lot of money is involved. And that's also something that I try to communicate to you in the course. How do we think about blockchain, not just as kind of a revolutionizing idea, but also what are the risks, what are the threats, and the better you know, the more you can manage the risks. Now, before I jump into the next slide, anybody knows what we celebrate tomorrow? So there's Halloween, yeah, that's one thing. But that's not what I want to talk about. Tomorrow will be the 13th anniversary of Bitcoin. Bitcoin was originally proposed by a guy who called himself Satoshi Nakamoto. That's a pseudonym. We don't know who he is. We assume that he's a single guy. And he sent this message to a cryptography mailing list, like a kind of forum online, where he said that he's been working on a new electronic cash system that's fully peer-to-peer, that is decentralized, and with no trusted third party. That means no banks, no intermediaries. And he gave a white paper describing it at a high level how the system would work. And so that's really how Bitcoin started. And so it happens that it was 13 years minus 1 day ago. So that's kind of relevant here. So that's really how the world of cryptocurrencies really started. We did not talk about cryptocurrencies before that. There were other forms of digital currencies that were trying to come to life, but eventually Bitcoin is the only one that we really remember because of its success. So it's actually, Bitcoin is coming out of a long history of failed attempts and the invention of different building blocks that started nearly 30 years ago with aspects like Merkle trees and various forms of digital cash that were kind of innovative at the time, but couldn't make it to the point that Bitcoin did. So Bitcoin is kind of, it is not just something that comes out of nowhere. It is the logical evolution of several attempts at doing some digital form of currencies. And you can see also at the top of the chart that private blockchains and Ethereum, which is smart contracts, is even more recent than Bitcoin. But there's that foundation. What I want to say is that there's some big foundations in the first decades to back up the technology in Bitcoin. Now, my talk is about blockchain, but I've started with Bitcoin. Anybody knows exactly how those concepts interact with each other? What's a blockchain? What's Bitcoin? How does these two things relate to each other? Anybody familiar with those things already? No? Okay, great. So this program is really made for you. So let me give you, at least if you have to remember something from this presentation, let me give you an overall idea of how do things, get into each other and connect to each other. So I would like to say that we start with blockchain, but actually we really start with Bitcoin. In this Bitcoin white paper that Nakamoto proposed, he proposed this idea of a blockchain. Blockchain did not exist prior to Bitcoin, or at least not in its final shape that we know of and that we refer nowadays as blockchain. That's some invention that was proposed along with Bitcoin to solve technical problems inside Bitcoin. So the building blocks of the blockchain itself have some longer history, but the way they integrate together and solve particular problems in the digital currency only occurred first in Bitcoin. So Bitcoin relies on the blockchain. Bitcoin is not just the blockchain, it relies on the blockchain. And then it does, it uses the blockchain as a sort of a ledger to record transactions and, know how the money moves. Bitcoin itself tries to be a currency. So I'll put that into the bubble of a currency. We could argue whether Bitcoin really fulfills all of the needs of a currency or not, especially given how its value fluctuates. But let's say for now, it would be a subset of a currency. Now, you guys are very familiar with the world of finance. And so if we consider that the whole world of finance, we have many other product and aspects, right? Beside currencies, we have securities, insurances, loans. And really what FinTech is about is the application of technology to all those financial aspects, like application of technology to insurances, to loans. But one of the novel technologies that we can apply to the financial world is applying blockchain to those different areas other than currencies, where it all started was Bitcoin. And that gives rise to the term DeFi, that stands for decentralized finance, which is doing finance in a decentralized fashion by relying on the blockchain. And it enables very fascinating things that can be done much better, much more reliable than what it could be done without using technologies. There is that example I like to give about how blockchain can be applied to loans, for example. So if you have to give a loan to someone, you would probably give some amount of money and ask to be repaid within some years or some decades, right? Well, if you try to do loan on a blockchain, you could of course do that, but you could also push that to the limits of things that do not exist in the physical world. What if I told you you could do a loan that is so fast, so quick, that in a blink of an eye, it's already provided and reimbursed? It's called a flash loan. Anybody heard about what's a flash loan? No? Okay. So that's something that's enabled by the technology. You can make a loan so quick that the guy who needs the money will do everything that he needs to do with the money and will repay you with zero risk instantly. So that's enabled by basically doing smart contracts on top of the blockchain. So you will describe on the contract that's executed on the blockchain, and there's no way you can deviate from that. You cannot cheat as long as we both agree on what's the contract and we both engage in the contract, and you can engage into these sort of things. So to me, it's like we have classic physicists, that's the financial people who don't know much about blockchain and smart contract, and they discover quantum mechanics. Like, how do those things work? It's governed by different rules. So at least flash loans is something that does not exist in the physical world. So that's kind of a metaphor here. So there are some other aspects where blockchain could potentially bring some new value outside of finance. That's anything else that deals with, for example, digital ID, supply chain. So we don't talk much about those. There's probably less opportunities in non-financial world for blockchain than in finance itself. So this picture, if you have to remember something today, that's this picture, how things interact. Okay, so since the invention of Bitcoin, as you're aware now, we have plenty of other cryptocurrencies on the market. Bitcoin still remains the biggest by market cap, followed by Ethereum, which is that biggest smart contract platform that I referred to earlier, followed by plenty of other fancy names of cryptocurrencies, which each has their different specificities, properties, and community behind and so on. But it hasn't always been the case. I'd like to share you this story where back in 2010, so that's about 2 years after the start of Bitcoin, someone tried, it's like a tech guy on the forum, he tried to order 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoins. So he put up the offer online and he asked, okay, anyone can just bring me 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoins. And nobody was interested. Nobody took that. So he had to push a little bit and ask whether those 10,000 Bitcoins were not enough. At the time, they were worth about 40 USD. Decent price for like just 2 pizzas. Eventually, someone showed up at his door the next day with 2 pizzas. So he paid the guy 10,000 Bitcoins. That's the picture of himself with his 2 kids, and the 2 pizzas they were bought using Bitcoin. Now that sounds like a funny example, but it's actually very important for 2 reasons. The first one is that Bitcoin has not always been so popular, right? It really started pretty low in a community of what we call crypto anarchists, people who just want to get rid of banks. And so that's kind of the background reason for the birth of Bitcoin. Of course, nowadays we know it has reached a much bigger audience. The second more important reason why this is important is that it demonstrates that Bitcoin could fulfill the notion of medium of exchange. You can use it in order to exchange for goods, and you can put a price on it. And that's a pretty important property for anything that wants to be a currency, wants to be called money. So Bitcoin proved, at least conceptually, that this was potentially possible. So if the guy, of course, kept his 10,000 Bitcoins, he would be quite richer nowadays, as the value of Bitcoin has severely increased. With today's exchange rates, those 10,000 Bitcoins would be worth over 600 million USD. That's part of the reason why it's probably better as an investment product so far than as a currency. But for example, that's kind of notions that we can discuss in more extent in the course. So beside Bitcoin, the whole world of cryptocurrencies is said to be worth more than $1 trillion USD. So that's not something to be ignored. You can't just think that it's worth nothing, that it's just a weird invention. It has a lot of money attached to it. And you can see even governments trying to jump into it to some extent. For example, Canada considers using Bitcoin as a potential future reserve currency. More recently, El Salvador just passed a law that makes Bitcoin accepted as a legal tender. So you can go in a shop and pay in Bitcoins, and that's a legal tender. They also accept the US dollars in the same way. We don't know yet if it's a crazy move or not, but you see this evolution pushing towards more cryptocurrencies in our daily world, and I guess it's important to know more about it. So those are like the great news, right? The things that make it look like very promising. But there's also another side of things. For example, Bitcoin consumes a lot of energy. It's not because it's inefficient. It's because that's the way it works. There's something inside Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies that we call a proof of work. And essentially it relies on burning energy. It just works by burning a lot of energy, and that causes some problems. It's not necessarily green, but again, it depends what you compare that to. If you try to consider that Bitcoin would replace part of the traditional banking system, then you have to compare with what the traditional system consumes in terms of energy. If you consider that Bitcoin is just like some niche thing, then of course its power consumption seems to be. So, there's always two sides of things in this when we consider Bitcoin. Of course, certain countries are not so keen to cryptocurrencies. I'm not going to explain too much into detail the point of view of mainland. You've probably seen that in news. And finally, there are bugs. There are things that do not work as we would expect. In this case, recently, a major DeFi platform kind of almost lost $160 million because they put up a contract that had a bug in it and that put their money up for grabs for others to just come and take the money. So they just asked their customers, please return us the money. So things could potentially go wrong, and so you have to understand where things can go wrong, what's the risk, and how to mitigate those sort of things. So those two different aspects can reflect the point of view of two types of people, one which we call the maximalists, people who are very optimistic about cryptocurrencies and what they will fulfill, etc. And the point of view of minimalists who may think that, they're pretty pessimistic about the technology, think that it's just maybe not up to the extent of a big scam, but at least it consumes a lot of energy for not so much. And so that's typically something that we discuss and we explored the two arguments in the course. What's good, what's bad, why is it bad, why is it good, what do you compare things against? There is no right or wrong because it's still such a new technology that and it keeps evolving every day. But at least it's good to understand the whole aspects of blockchain and cryptocurrencies. So why is it important to know more than just knowing that blockchain works, that Bitcoin works, and that we can just buy some cryptocurrencies and use that as an investment and rely on smart contracts because they are smart and they just handle things for you and it's all very nice. Why do you need to know more about it? Even though you're not really the tech people, you're not necessarily willing to look too much into the technology, but there's still some levels that you need to get familiar with. First, you need to understand what the tech allows and does not allow. Like if someone comes to you and say, well, I have a great idea, let's do that on the blockchain, it's going to be more efficient. Well, is it true? It's as if I'm trying to sell you a black box and I will give you many promises about it. If you don't know what's inside, you don't know how to react. Now, if you know a little bit more about how does it work, and that will go to a greater extent in the course, teaching you the inner details of the blockchain without involving too much boring skills, but then you will be able to know whether that's a brilliant idea or if it's just nonsense. You also need to know what problems does it solve, what does blockchain solve, and what does it not solve. What are the threats? What are the risks associated with different aspects of cryptocurrencies, contracts, and these sort of things, and also keep up to date with the latest trends. As I said, it's a very fast-moving era, all the DeFi platforms all are like blossoming at a very fast rate, and it's sometimes difficult to understand what is worth and what is not worth. So typical things that you will get taught is, before I jump into that, let me just quickly give you a little bit of etymology. Here, when we talk about cryptocurrency, that's to be contrasted with other currencies that are not relying on crypto. Now, crypto, it's often used as the acronym for those cryptocurrencies. We say, hey, I've seen a bunch of new cryptos. For tech guys like me, it just like itches my ear, because crypto normally stands for cryptography, which is the study of how to hide a message in the presence of an adversary. And cryptocurrencies basically rely on cryptography a lot. And that's why we call them cryptocurrencies. Now, when we talk about cryptography, that's something that you need to learn a little bit about. That's why the course is called Cryptography and Blockchain. When we talk about cryptography, what comes to mind are, ciphers that were used in the Roman empires to just encode messages between soldiers. Think about the Enigma machine during World War II that was used by Germans to encode messages, that was broken by the famous Alan Turing, which a movie was dedicated to that story, the Imitation Game. So that's the sort of things that cryptocurrencies rely on. So typically, the blockchain includes different aspects of cryptography that we'll cover in the course. And so we'll talk a bit about that, and then we'll talk about, in more extent, what is a blockchain. And so at the high level here, because I don't have so much time left to explain, there's different levels that you can consider a blockchain. There is data structure level, like how things are stored on a blockchain. Because a blockchain, like the name implies, is just a chain of blocks. Now, why is it a chain of blocks? How are they chained? What are in those blocks? Are some things which is not necessarily trivial, but it pieces it together nicely. But it's not just the data structure. It's not just like dead blocks sitting on a USB key. It also leaves as time goes on. And so there is also that consensus layer where everybody participating in the cryptocurrency, rules how does the blockchain evolve in time by a number of rules. And there is on top of that, what do you do on top of your blockchain? You can store currencies, you can store contracts. There are plenty of things that you can do. And so this integration of those different layers makes the blockchain what it is. So it's not just, you cannot just regard it as only one of the aspects, it's all of the aspects interacting between each other. And once you understand how does it work, you can understand much better cryptocurrencies and other things that are relying on the blockchain. So that concludes my presentation. I hope that I gave you at least some new ideas and new concepts, so that it clarifies a bit of what cryptocurrencies are, what blockchain is at a very high level. And so I encourage you to learn more by taking this class. Thank you very much. All right, so great question. So I briefly mentioned that beside the area of finance, blockchain could have some applications to supply chain. And so whether I will discuss that in greater extent in my course. So that's something that is possible to cover in the course. For example, when we're talking about projects, this is an area that you could potentially explore within the realm of a project, something that we'll cover briefly, maybe not in too much extent. But of course, depending on the interest of the students in the class, it's something that we can delve more into. That. But if there's no more questions, I'll just hand the mic to.
Let me introduce myself first. I'm the Senior General Manager of the Sales Department of Henderson Land, which is one of the major developers in Hong Kong. my company's business is to build city. Okay. I think I'm the first student to enroll in this program. I'm the first student. I talked to Wilson and he asked me to join, and I immediately joined. Okay. My thesis topic is how real estate tokenization in Hong Kong can solve land problems and build a smart city. So it involves blockchain token, and also involve smart city concepts. I benefit a lot from this program because if I do not join this class, I will not have ideas about that concepts. First of all, I will mention the background and motivation of this thesis. Presidency of China said that blockchain is an important breakthrough in the independent innovation of core technologies, and China's making use of blockchain technologies in this economy. And Hong Kong is announcing around the national policy of mainland China to build smart cities, and Hong Kong Smart City Blueprint 2.0 is published in December 2020. And Hong Kong at the same time is suffering from serious shortage of land. The chief executive has announced the Land Town Tomorrow Vision, 明日大嶼願景. And just now, chief executive has announced the policy address 2021. Hong Kong is lacking 3,000 hectares of land and is going to implement the Northern Metropolis seeking integration with Shenzhen. On the other hand, the world is practicing the monetary easing policy due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And Hong Kong is going to build its reputation as a global financial asset management center. And the blockchain technology now come to have a breakthrough. So my question is, how we can integrate all these factors and combining them in a meaningful way to which solution to satisfy all the needs of the society? And I think about this problem for half a year, and I come up with the idea of real estate tokenization. And I have thanks for Professor Tong. He told me about the idea of tokenization. Before that, I do not have that idea. Now, Hong Kong is now going to have implemented twin cities free circles. Is stated in the Chief Executive Policy Address 2021 to integrate with Shenzhen. Now, we have a main job to do in the next 20 years to develop 600 hectares of land along the border between Shenzhen and Hong Kong. So it involves a lot of areas. And so happen my company has a lot of land over that area. So this topic is with my company. Okay, there are some successful examples about the use of blockchain and the tokenization. The first one is just like last year, the Bank of Thailand has implemented a new blockchain technology platform for the government bond, and it was successful. And Bank of Thailand said that in the future, the infrastructure, blockchain infrastructure will be expanded to support all kinds of government bonds. So the Thailand is going to use that for their future government bond, the blockchain. Another example is in 2018. This is the first real estate token issued in the world. This is in USA. The S-Pen digital token. It was the first offering was in 2018 October 1st. And the issue price was $1 US dollar, and then this is the price fluctuation of the bond to be above $1. And this is the structure of the token. Now, my thesis, it's very interesting. I have 5 tokens. I can imagine. I am thinking of using the token in 5 different ways to address the shortage of land in Hong Kong, and also to help to build Hong Kong's asset management. The first three concern the supply of land, and the last two concern the use of token, the real estate token as a financial asset. The first one is about the land readjustment, the land bond, how to use the land bond to consolidate the land and to allow the development of land. The second one is about the flat for flat scheme for the development of old buildings. The third one will be the real estate token to tokenize a building which is already built. Okay, the fourth one will be the property development finance for the real estate developer to obtain finance for development of projects. And the fifth one will be the property investment finance. Is similar to a REIT, token bond right REIT. It concerns the tokenization of a building which is for rental income. Now, how this relate to big smart city? The Smart City Blueprint 2.0 of Hong Kong said that the first two things that concern people much is about the creation of housing. The first one, housing for residents, and to create more efficient use of land, public space, and buildings. So my thesis will address these two major issues. The benefits of real estate tokenization is a lot. It almost has the best of all worlds. It concerns the personalization of the asset. It improves the liquidity because it's available for trading over the world. And it's called efficient, and it's automatic, it's smart contract. And the settlement time is almost instant. And the data is transparent. And you can structure the products in many different ways as you like. So these are the benefits of real estate tokenization. The future of the STO market. Okay, now this is the forecast by Chain Partners Research, the major blockchain company in Korea. The forecast for the next 10 years has a growth rate of 59% per annum. So we are now just at the very beginning, starting in 2019. Now, the challenges and problems of real estate in Hong Kong is like this. We have a shortage of land, and the land suffer from liquidity problem, just like Handan, okay, just in China, the liquidity problem. And you have high transaction costs, and it's very time consuming for initiating a REIT. And in some cases, the commercial property cannot be strata sale. It can only be sold as a whole. And it has a high sum for development, high sum for investment. And also there's a general discount price in between the stock price of property development company to the net asset value. And however, there are some legal and regulatory uncertainty in tokenization. So these are all challenges that we are facing. My first three token concern is a part of that. Okay, it's like the bearing and then the development of building and the new building. Now, for the token one, the first one, the land bond. In fact, the idea comes from Hong Kong U, the one local center. If you know economics, you know Coase theorem. It's about bringing out the maximum efficiency by having zero transaction costs and well-defined property rights. In new territories, the land are scattered among many different owners. So how can we combine all the land into one single lot? In the past, before 1997, Hong Kong used the letter AB system. But after 1997, we do not have letter AB system. So after 1997, we do not have new towns. So we need to reactivate this mechanism. Otherwise, Hong Kong will not be able to build new towns using the market method. The government is now considering using the land resumption orders by force of law, not by force of the market. So my token one is to use the market to trade the pieces of land. However, Hong Kong, you also said that how can we create a secondary market? Can we use spot chain to solve the problem? And my answer is yes. In fact, I asked Hong Kong U to write certain articles on that. And how can we create a market for that can avoid foster trading fake land bonds, because we do not have land registry to trade the land bond. My suggestion is to use the blockchain as a kind of land registry, and to give the price, to state the price, so that there will be with no information asymmetry about the price of the land bond. And also, token 2 is about the redevelopment of land. Similar to land bond, is about the flat for flat, the change of flat for flat. If you own an old flat, you want to change it for a new flat after the development. At this moment, you cannot do it. You can only use contract, but the time period for the redevelopment will last for maybe 5 to 10 years. During this time, it will be very difficult for you to sell the rights to the third party. If you use the land bond, if you use the token 2 bond, then you can change it by converting your old flat into a token, and then you can sell the token through the blockchain to others. And then after the redevelopment of the building, then the token can be changed for the new flat. Through this way, you can facilitate you to trade in the meantime. Otherwise, you cannot do it. For the new building, for example, this prestigious building have a land grant restriction. When the government sell the land, this kind of prestigious building have a restriction to resell it as a whole. You cannot strata sell it. So my question is, how can we, in the future, how can we sell the building to third party? Now, if the land grant said that you can only sell it to as a whole, then it will involve a very huge sum. My solution is to create tokens for this property, just like the aspect coin that in 2010. Then you can personalize it and then resell it and create a secondary market in the blockchain. So the fourth one will be concerning the developer tokens. Now, given that the land price in Hong Kong is very huge, the developer will also face the problem of financing, because the land premium will be too high and the land development cost will be very high. How can we find the finance to finance the purchase of the land and the building of the land? We can use the token as a form of investment by the small investor. Okay, and also the land power tomorrow vision involve a very huge sum of investment. The estimated cost is 224 billion. So if the government spend that amount, then it will need to recoup it through the land sale. That will impose a very high burden on the developer. So if we can have an alternative method to obtain finance, then you will be able to help the developer to finance the building of this land. Okay. The fifth one will be about the bond-like rich token. The idea is this: real estate property has two special characteristics. First, it can generate income through the rental yield. The second one is that the real estate property can hedge against inflation. So if we can structure the token such that it represents a fixed income and also a certain percentage of the underlying asset, then it will be marketable and will be maybe very popular among the long-term investors, just like the pension fund and sovereign fund. They may be interested in that. So it will provide an alternative method of raising funds and investment. So my research design is this. The conclusion is that there will be three types of tokenization. The first is the direct issuance on DLT, the digital letter technology. And just like the Thailand bond is the first one, the Thailand bond that I mentioned. The second one is equity token issue on DLTs is a certain percentage of the company. The third one is limited partnership in the form of private equity fund issue on DLT. There can be other structures depending on the jurisdiction of the country and the commercial terms and the operation list and the parties involved in the tax consideration. Okay, DLT. But for equity token, I have examined the law of many jurisdictions and U.S., Swiss, Russia, Cayman Island, etc. And my thesis will compare these structures. And limited partnership will be like this. Is in fact a structure from USA fund. I draw it from that information memorandum. Okay. Now, in the meantime, my thesis will be due next year. But in the meantime, I have joined a team. In fact, I asked somebody to help me to develop this. And just you can search this paper, real estate STO white paper, first paper. You can search it in Google, and it was just published in August 2021, involving Deloitte, Hong Kong BX, Colliers International, a real estate firm, and City Austin, a law firm. We have jointly published this paper, and this is the first paper on real estate tokenization for Hong Kong. And the second one will be in November or December, 1 month or 2 months later. And the third one will be in the first quarter of next year. So we are now helping to create an ecosystem for Hong Kong for the trading of real estate token. So the potential contribution of this paper will be to provide more technical solutions, so some real problems in real estate industry, and hope that it can extend to mainland China and other jurisdictions. In the meantime, the ecosystem, the issuer, the investor, the trading platform, the auditor, the legal firm, legal advisor, will need to be built up. So we are moving towards this direction. So this is my presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Raymond. I think it's quite interesting. And actually, I read your paper with Deloitte. That's a very, very informative paper, quite interesting. Right. Sorry that we kind of run over time, but the last but not the least is another student look at a very different angle, a different topic, which is on virtual banking. And she's working in virtual bank, and the thesis is exactly on, call it new banks, right? And she doesn't have a PowerPoint for a very...
Yeah, sorry, I didn't prepare a slide. And my name is Melissa. So my research topic is about why no bank, why some countries, why no banks prosper more in some countries than in others. So I want to find the behind reason about the fintech prosperity among the world, because I currently working in virtual bank. So I want to give the whole industry some suggestions to how to develop their business. because I think the Hong Kong FinTech is behind the US and the European. So I want to learn from other countries. I also want to make some suggestions to the government or the regulators because I think there are many reasons can contribute to this development. And during this period, I have learned a lot. I think Hong Kong Virtual Bank should replace a large percent of retail banking in the future. And I also believe in the future the new bank will totally replace the traditional bank. That's what I joined this program, because I want to make a difference. I want to get a higher hyper awareness of the whole industry, because before I joined this program, I have no idea about the FinTech, and also I don't know what happened in this industry. I even don't know the DeFi and the digital currency. But after this program, I not only know what happened in this industry, but also made a lot of friends in this industry, and I can catch the trend and also find a lot of opportunities. So I think I will finish my presentation. Thank you. And if you have any questions or have any interested in this no bank, you can feel free to contact me. Thank you.